Right, hello guys and welcome back. In Destiny 2's final update, Monument of Triumph, a lot is changing with regards to build crafting your characters. We've now digested everything we possibly could have out of the several dev insights posted over the past couple weeks, and as a result we have a better idea of what builds are going to be the strongest. So today I'm starting a short mini-series covering the top 3 builds for each class that you should have ready for the update, fully factoring upcoming buffs and changes. And today we're starting with Titans, with Warlocks and Hunters to follow in the next couple days. And if you enjoy today's content, your like and subscription would be very much appreciated, as we're super close to 100,000 subs. But without further ado, let's begin. Okay, so for the first build, we are going to be starting with the Void Titan. Now, Void Titans are getting a lot of cool changes in the update. The one you've probably seen is the massive bubble that you are going to be able to run around and carry. That is something that you could use with the build I'm about to show you if you would like, but obviously you can't do that right now because the update is not out. But there are a few other changes, buffs to offensive bulwark, your melees are getting more damage, and overall Void Titan is just a very solid class, and it is going to be even better in the update, especially if you combine primary buffs in there as well. Lots of changes to digest, but that's what you've got me for, and let's get into the build. So with the Void Titan, you have a couple options. With exotics, me personally, I would go with Peregrine Greaves or with something like Peacekeepers instead. But we're going to be showcasing Peregrine Greaves. As you're going to be seeing through the gameplay, it's mostly a melee focused build that we're covering today. And just to briefly go over it, Peregrine Greaves, the reason we are using these is because one, it has the perk Peregrine Strike that says all shoulder charge abilities, which includes Shield Bash, deal bonus damage when activated in the air. Damaging mini-bosses, tormentors, or champions with your shoulder charge refunds your melee. Provides a small benefit to the airborne effectiveness stat of all weapons. So that last part we don't care about, but basically we get our melee back if we hit a champion or a mini-boss with it, and it also deals a lot more damage. It's like around 400% or something. We'll have the number up on screen. And the second reason, Shield Bash is getting a 100% damage buff. In yesterday's dev article, they said that they are straight up just doubling the damage of this melee, so add that on to Peregrine Greaves, you've got yourself a very high damage setup that you can loop pretty well with the setup that we have going on here. So, on to the subclass. Speaking of, how do we get our melee back, our Shield Bash back quickly? Well, for starters, we are going to be taking the Rally Barricade, and that is going to pair nicely with the Bastion aspect, which, by the way, is also getting a buff. Bastion is going from 2 fragment slots to 3 in the update. This means you're going to be able to slot a total of 5 fragments, and we're going to discuss which ones those are in just a moment. But Bastion is going to make it so when you cast your super, you're going to get overshield to you and your allies, and also when you cast your barricade, you will just get overshield because, you know, it's the purple barricade. It's the classic Bastion barricade. Cast it, you've got overshield for the whole duration of the barricade, and that's important because we're going to pair that with our second aspect, offensive bulwark. It states, while you have an overshield or you are inside Ward of Dawn, your grenade charges significantly faster. I believe it's 400%. You have increased melee range and damage, which I think is around 160% melee damage, and melee final blows restore a small portion of your overshield and extend its duration. So that is going to be a nice way of getting overshield back, which is going to be very good for just, you know, survivability in general. But this is also getting a change. Offensive bulwark, I will have the patch note on screen, is getting a change where whenever you have overshield, getting kills is going to give you melee energy back. Now, I believe that's ability kills, weapon kills. It didn't say specifically in the patch note it had to be certain type of kill. I believe any kill will work. So as long as you have overshield, you will be getting more melee energy back in the patch. So that's going to be very good for a Peregrine Greaves build because we are going to get our Shield Bash back faster. Now, from the gameplay you're seeing, there are times where I don't have my melee and I am trying to get it back by getting melee kills, and I'm going to be collecting the orbs from those kills and they will give me melee energy back, and it's not as optimal as it could be once we have this change. I think it's going to be a lot nicer to get your melee back once this change goes through, with the overshield giving you melee energy on kills. So that's going to be very nice. So overall, we now have 5 fragments available to us. We're going to get more melee energy than ever before, and our melee is going to be doing double the damage that it used to. So how do we top this all off with fragments? The first one we are taking is Echo of Starvation. This is the Devour fragment. It'll make it so collecting a Void Breach or an Orb of Power grants Devour, which is, you know, it's Devour. It's very nice. Secondly, Echo of Undermining. Void Grenades weaken targets. Good for artifact stuff, which we will talk about in a moment. Recommended artifact, which is pretty crazy to say. Moving on, Echo of Persistence. Void buffs applied to you have increased duration, which includes Devour and Overshield. Then finally, for the fourth fragment, we have Echo of Provision. Damaging targets with grenades grants melee energy. That's just another way of getting our melee back faster, and it also gives plus 10 grenade stat. For the fifth fragment that we are going to have space for, I would probably either go for Echo of Leeching to make it so melee final blows start health regeneration, because Void, despite having Void Overshield, is still relatively squishy. You don't have something like an Amplify to help you out with enemy distraction. Or you could go for Echo of Vigilance. It's a very good survivability fragment that also gives you access to overshield. If your shields ever get cracked, you get a full void overshield for like 8 seconds. Very good fragment here, but it's kind of up to personal preference. You could go Echo of Expulsion as well if you like explosions, why not? Just gives you a bit more freedom with having a 5th fragment slot. Now, I mentioned artifact, and before we get into weapons or anything like that, I do want to say, in this new update, as some of you may know, we're going to be able to choose 1 out of 7 artifacts for our builds. And of course, this means that you have to take into consideration what artifact is best for a specific build, which one has, and in our case, which one has mods which cater to both melee damage and void stuff. And I've had a look through, and I think the best artifact you ought to choose is the one from episode Echoes. And the reason for that is there are 3 mods in Echoes that are going to be very good for this specific build. The first one is Shield Crush. This one is going to make it so whenever you have Void Overshield, it will improve the recharge rate of your melee and its damage by a small amount, which is great. We have Peregrine Greaves. Then there's the second mod, which is going to be Expanding Abyss. This will make it so weakened targets take more damage from void damage. So I believe it turns a 15% weaken into a 25% specifically for void damage. So if you hit a target with your weaken nade, your melee is just going to do even more damage to them, which is really nice. And then finally, there is also Void Hegemony, which is going to make it so when you defeat weakened targets, you'll get a small amount of overshield back. It's not a huge amount, but we are going to be weakening stuff with our grenade and all sorts of other things like our super, which will be Twilight Axes, or the bubble. The bubble also weakens stuff. So it's just another perk to add on. But the main ones are Shield Crush and Expanding Abyss, because I think those will work the best with this build. You could also use the Edge of Fate artifact because that has Shield Crush on it as well, but it doesn't have any other void adjacent perks, so that's why I would recommend the Echoes one instead. So with the artifact out of the way, of course, we are going to get more into that once the patch is actually out. It's more of a kind of brief recommendation here so I don't make the video too long. Stats and weapons. Weapons, I have a special weapon like a Lotus Eater sidearm here, Void sidearm, got destabilizing rounds on it just for some extra volatile stuff, and the rest is just anti-champion. Doesn't really matter for the build. Stats-wise though, I have gone for near 200 melee. I have 194 melee on here and then 100 super so I can get my super back the fastest. This is just to make sure that my melee is doing the most amount of damage it possibly can. Now in terms of the armor pieces that I use to get this distribution, I have a Paragon helmet with a tertiary stat in weapons. I have a Brawler pair of gauntlets with a tertiary stat in super, a Brawler chest piece with a tertiary stat in super. My Peregrines are Brawler with a tertiary stat in class, and then my class item is Brawler with a tertiary stat in super. Could be slightly better, and the armor farming situation is going to get better once we have the update in our hands. Again, to not bog down the video's length too much, I have got the mods on screen here for you to copy if you would like to, and the dim links for all of these builds will be in the description box down below, so don't worry about that. But that is mostly going to do it for the Void Titan. Overall, I think Void Titan is going to be very solid in this final patch. It's going to be very solid for basically the rest of time. And we will have Void Titan builds coming out on the channel once the patch is actually out, but just wanted to make you aware, this is a great place to start with Peregrine Greaves, especially considering all of the buffs that the Void aspects are getting. Up next, we have the Arc Titan, and this is the build that I am most excited to use again because it is basically going to be the revival of the Arc Titan build from Heresy if any of you played during that time. Because Arc Titan back then was glorious. It was so much fun, specifically because of the artifact perks that we had access to, and that is actually going to be the main draw of this whole build, is the fact that we are going to be getting the Heresy artifact back. Now, let's talk about that first because that is, you know, the main power fantasy here. So with the Heresy artifact, we have 5 artifact perks which are going to serve the build incredibly well. Now, first of all, in the gameplay you're seeing, you might be noticing that I'm using a void weapon with volatile rounds or destabilizing rounds on it, which in this case is the Reckless Oracle. And the reason I have that is because there are 2 perks. The first one being a Volatile Marksman. This one is going to make it so when you activate volatile explosions, it will give you a small amount of class ability energy, which for a Storm's Keep Arc Titan is very good because we can loop our Storm's Keep even faster. Then there is a second mod called Maligned Harvest. This one is going to make it so whenever you trigger volatile explosions, you will create a weakening burst as well, and then killing weakened enemies will give you a small bit of void overshield as well, which is very good to pair alongside a void primary. So that is for the neutral void side. It's just going to get our barricade back and just a little bit of extra effects. But then for the arc stuff, you guys will probably all remember we have Dielectric in the Heresy artifact. This one is going to make it so whenever we get multi-kills with arc debuffs, we will spawn orbs of power that heal us, and then also defeating arc debuff targets grants bolt charge. So it's going to give us even more bolt charge. But then the 2 main ones, the 2 centerpieces, are going to be Flashover. Flashover is going to increase the damage of our bolt charge by 2.5 times and make us amplified when we reach maximum bolt charge. Now, I believe they are going to be tweaking this number. It probably won't be 2.5 times again. If I had to guess, it will probably be 1.5 instead, because Flashover was really strong back in the day, and they probably don't want to leave bolt charge that OP be going into the rest of the game's future, but it will still be very good to have. And then finally, defibrillating blast, which is going to be excellent for survivability because it will make it so whenever you trigger a bolt charge detonation, you will get healed, and also your bolt charge lightning strikes apply jolt as well, which is really, really good. So we're going to get insane healing. Our bolt charge is going to be even more damaging than it was before, and we're just going to be slaying out with all of our Storm's Keep barricades, spamming them all, spamming abilities, so on and so forth. So the Heresy artifact, great to have back in this build. Now, what else are we doing to support the rest of it? Well, looking at the subclass, of course, we want Rally Barricade. I've also gone for Thunderclap here. You could go for Seismic Strike if you wanted, because again, in the patch, Bungie are buffing the damage of this melee by 100%, which is really nice. So if you really like Seismic Strike, why not? Because it's getting double the damage it used to. We've also gone for Pulse Grenade, and then for the aspects, of course, Storm's Keep, so that we can sit behind the barricade and trigger Bolt Charge with our weapons, and then Knockout for the survivability, because whenever we get melee kills, we will get amplified and we will get healed. You could, if you wanted to, if you were feeling a little bit ballsy, you could swap that for Touch of Thunder, because Touch of Thunder is getting a buff specifically with the Lightning Grenades, where Lightning Grenades will now deal 25% increased damage, and if you were using Touch of Thunder, they will also pile on 5 stacks of Bolt Charge per tick, and there are 4 ticks with this grenade, so you will get 2 lightning strikes per lightning grenade, if you kind of get what I'm saying there. So it could be good, we don't know yet, needs testing, but for the moment, going with Knockout. Fragments, magnitude to make the grenade last longer, frequency to double the bolt charge we get whenever we're amplified, protection for the damage resistance, and then shock for the jolt on our arc grenades. Now for the exotic of choice, I'm going for Heart of Inmost Light, though you do have options. You could go for Insurmountable Skullfort, you could go for Crest of Alpha Lupi, but I think Heart of Inmost is pretty good. Like from the gameplay you're seeing, I'm able to spam my barricade very quickly because it's just how the exotic works. Use your abilities to empower the other two to deal more damage and also recharge faster. Heart of Inmost Light, very consistent. This is what I recommend going in with if I was you. And then for the stats, I have gone for 100 super, 100 class, and then as much weapons as I could get my hands on. I've got 158 here. That is going to be pretty much good enough if you want to make sure you have enough special ammo for your specials. And I'm using Min Retrograde here, which is getting a nerf, but in neutral game, still going to be very solid. So I still think, you know, rocket pulses aren't going to be dead in the new patch. That's why I'm still using it, but I could use something else. I could use a shotgun if I wanted to. Reckless Oracle with the role of destabilizing rounds and one for all. Keep in mind, this weapon is getting reprised in the Raid and Dungeon reprise from Garden of Salvation. You are going to be able to get this all the way to tier 5, presumably with new perks as well. There might be a better damage perk other than one for all, maybe aggregate charge or something, I don't know. But this role is still very future-proof, and I would just be able to take this straight to tier 5 once the update drops if I would like to. And by the way, in all of these builds, I'm not really talking about set bonuses, mainly because we are getting more than 30 brand new set bonuses that could have profound effects on all of these builds that I don't even know about yet. So we will likely be factoring that in with videos post-update, so not right now. If I was to say right now, probably go with Ferropotent and Ion Adapter, but that could totally change in under a week's time, so that's why we're not talking about it. For the distribution for these, I have a Specialist helmet with a tertiary stat in Super. For the gloves, I have a Specialist with a tertiary stat in Super. My Heart of Inmost Light is Paragon with a tertiary stat in Weapons. My boots are Gunner with a tertiary stat in Super, and then my class item is Specialist with a tertiary stat in Grenade. Again, these are the mods for the build on screen here. Pause if you need to, but like I said, the dim link will be in the description for you to copy hassle-free. So, Arc Titan going to be very, very good in this new patch, mainly because we will have access to the Heresy artifact once again, which is super awesome. Going to be a lot of fun for Arc Titans. It's just going to be really fun running them all once again. All right, on to the last build now. We are going on to Solar Titan, and this is more of a sort of pick that I think will be pretty fun. A lot of what's going to make Solar Titan particularly good is not available to us yet. I am, of course, talking about the brand new aspect, the shield burst aspect, which is going to make it so your barricades basically act as remote C4, which is really awesome. We'll probably have a clip of the gameplay going up on the screen right now. Super awesome. I can't wait to make a build around that, and it is honestly what I would recommend, but we have got something slightly different here instead, and I'm actually going with the Ashen Wake Fusion Grenade build as a recommendation. And the reason for that is because we are getting a specific artifact perk added to the Renegades artifact, which are the ones we were supposed to be getting in Shadow and Order, and this one is called Sticker Shock, and it's going to make it so your fusion grenades deal more damage, and whenever you get kills with them, it will spawn several micro missiles from the target location that track other enemies, which sounds really weird, but it does sound pretty fun. And this is a build that I used in the past. Viewers will know that I used this for leveling up from 400 to 450 back in the Edge of Fate days. It is honestly a pretty solid build. Not the best in the world, but this is kind of just me telling you that Solar Titan right now is primed to be a very fun class in this update. And I'm just going to tell you, start off with Ashen Wake, and then once we get a feel for shield burst and the exotics that come along with it, such as Hallowfire Heart, which is getting a really cool rework, by the way. We are going to then jump into that next, but Ashen Wake is a really nice starting point with this new artifact that we are getting in the encrypted data disk. Looking at the subclass, going to be on Hammer of Soul, super of choice doesn't really matter. Of course, you just want fusion grenades. For the melee, I've actually gone for Hammer Strike. And again, the reason I've gone for Hammer Strike is because Bungie are also buffing its damage by 100% in this patch. And you know, I was always a fan of this melee. It made a really cool sound, especially when you do it grounded, so why not? Aspects, we are going with Roaring Flames and Sol Invictus. Currently, this could change to Shield Burst once the update is out, and it probably will, but the Roaring Flames Sol Invictus combo, very good. Get Sunspots from Sol Invictus that give you restoration, good for survivability. Roaring Flames increases the damage of our solar abilities, including our fusion grenades. We have Ember of Char for the first fragment. This one is going to make Ignition spread Scorch. We have Ember of Ashes to make us deal more Scorch when we apply it, and then Ember of Resolve to make it so Solar Grenade Final Blows cure us, which will be happening a lot with our fusion grenades, and then Ember of Searing to make it so defeating Scorch targets grants melee energy and creates a fire spray. Now, for those of you who don't know what Ashen Wake does, I will show you that here in just a moment. This exotic is essentially just a grenade regen one, because if I get at least 3 red bar kills, it will give me my grenade refunded, or it will refund my grenade for me, and I can just do that over and over again. It depends on the enemy rank as well, so if you kill 1 orange bar, I will get around 80% of my grenade back, as you can see in the bottom left, but if you kill 2 orange bars, obviously you get the full thing back, and if it's a yellow bar, you get the whole thing back. So something like a champion, if you get it low enough and then pop it with the fusion grenade, you will get the fusion grenade back. And if you have Roaring Flames times 3, they do a significant amount of damage, which is pretty good. Plus, obviously, they have the added benefit of exploding on impacts rather than waiting on the delayed detonation like they normally do. So that's why I think it will pair very well with the upcoming artifact perk that we will get, which is going to spawn those micro missiles. Might be a bit goofy, and I think it'll just be quite fun to mess with. For the weapons, I actually would recommend the Praxic Blade here, especially with the Hyper Blade Catalyst, because this one is going to make it so when you block, you're going to become amplified. And you know, Solar subclass is very famous for not having any damage resist verbs whatsoever. They only have healing, those being cure and restoration. So having Hyper Blade here to give us amplified is going to be very nice, because that'll be 15% and make enemies less accurate when targeting you, which is very good. Amplified, one of the best verbs in the game, something I've been preaching for a long time. Then I've also gone for the Yeartide Apex, which, by the way, you are going to be able to re-earn once this update is out. I don't know whether you're going to be able to re-earn the holofoil or not. Fingers crossed, yes, but you will be able to re-earn one of the best feeling primaries in the game once the update is out in only 4 days. Armor and stats, I've gone for very high grenade stat to boost the damage of my fusion grenade, going to get as close to 200 as possible, then 100 super, then the rest doesn't matter whatsoever. Helmet is going to be Grenadier with a tertiary stat in weapons. Ashen Wake is Grenadier with a tertiary stat in class. My chest piece is Gunner with a tertiary stat in super. Boots are Grenadier with a tertiary stat in class as well. And then my class item is Grenadier with a tertiary stat in melee this time. Finally, here are the mods for the build, again, if you want to copy and take a screenshot. But like I said, the dim links will all be in the description. So those are going to be all 3 of the Titan builds that I would recommend you taking into the brand new update. Void and Arc, definitely going to be incredibly solid. Solar right now with Ashen Wake, going to be pretty good, pretty fun, pretty goofy with this new artifact perk coming up. But the real meat of Solar Titan is going to be with the new aspect and reworks to exotics that are going to come out post-update. And we will be covering those, so don't worry. But for now, just bear with this, and it will become even better once the update actually drops. So that is going to do it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed, guys, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now, dear viewer.